Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Vakratunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprabha, Nirvigram Kurumedeva, Sarvakareshu Sarvada Om Ganganapate Namaha, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwaraha, Guru Deva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadike, Sharanye Trambake Devi Narayani Namostute, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita, Namastasya, 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 Namo Namaha. Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha, Shri Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Om. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 20th of August 2025. I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagavan, residing in the heart of every single being. We are continuing to examine Prem-Lakshana Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. And along those lines, we have been looking at the 9 forms of devotion, many other interconnected ideas to awaken eventually into such an extraordinary level of devotion. What we'll be doing from now on, as I mentioned yesterday, you'll be seeing these beautiful images of Bhagavan Krishna and Radhika ji on the screen. So if you're using a phone, you can turn your phone horizontally so you can get the picture better. This is a way for us to keep our mind on Bhagavan, so that mind is not deflected in other places, and the focus has to be on Paramatma. Right? So that is the basic teaching here. Now, I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagavan, residing in the heart of every single being. So, one of the key points that a devotee, a bhakta, needs to intellectually understand, and that's what it is, it's an intellectual understanding, is that the vigraha, the form of Sri Krishna Bhagavan, is satyam, it is real, it is sat chit ananda. Of course, now our mind is going to say, wait a minute, these images in these temples are like what we see here on the screen. This is carved out of stone, a carven image out of stone. So how can you're worshipping a stone? People say that. But no, that's not the concept. That is not what it is. It is the understanding and love and affection with the shraddha, with the feeling inside of the presence of Bhagavan in that form and as that form. I want to explain this a bit so that it becomes clear to us what that actually means. Now, there's a difference between feeling and believing that God exists in this form, in the stone, the carven image. How can you say that is God? Well, that is a belief that is Bhagavan residing within that. That is one level of belief. But there's another level even beyond it where there is simply that this is Bhagavan. This is God. Now, what can that possibly mean? How does that work actually psychologically and internally within us? Well, that's because we cannot perceive the infinite reality through our senses completely. Our senses are able to perceive finite forms, right? Obviously, our senses cannot see the infinite reality. It only sees a slice of reality. So we need an access point into the infinite, into that Paraswarup, and that access point is the Archa Avatar. So the Archa Avatar is where there is an image, there is a form. The form of Bhagavan Ram, Bhagavan Krishna, the different incarnations that have come. But now again, there are those who don't want to worship, want to have any forms. There's even within Sanatana Dharma, there are quite a few paths of that type that are just trying to stay with the formless, the Nirakar Brahman. That's it. They don't believe there's any form. Or that forms are all part of Maya. So if everything is part of Maya, then even all of these forms are part of Maya. The images of Krishna and Radha and Sita and Hanumanji and Ramchandraji. But in devotional path, that is not the approach to be taken. In the Bhakti Marg, in the Upasana Marg, there is a clear-cut distinction between the form of Bhagavan and all of the other forms. There's a viveka there. There's a clear-cut separation. Without that clear-cut separation, there cannot be bhakti also. Now, what is this separation? The separation is as follows: that when an artist or when a person who makes these murtis, right? Let's say a murti of Krishna and Radha. Murti meaning the stone is carved into form of Krishna and Radha and Krishna. Now, how can you say that that is God? Isn't it just some psychological game that you're playing with yourself? Isn't that what it is? Many people say that you're worshipping these images and all this thing. This is just a mental game. There's nothing real in that. You're creating something fake inside your mind. This is what many people would say. They do say that. But I'll give you my commentary on that is not actually the case. It has to do with several points. When the murti is created and then it is installed inside a temple, there are mantras chanted to ask God, that Supreme Paramatma, to enter into this form as this form. That is called pratishta. Murti pratishta. So there's no temple ever built in the history of Sanatana Dharma without that pratishta ceremony. It's not just a ceremony, it is actually asking Bhagavan to come inside. You see, so is that possible? Does that actually happen? Or is it just, again, some imaginary, concocted thing? No, it's not imaginary. It does happen. It happens through the mantras. So again, it goes back to sound technology, that the different mantras, syllabic mantras and other stotras and mantras that are chanted, and there's a process. And then there's the feeling of the devotees, the bhaktas, to say, God, you come here in this way. Or the human manifestation of Krishna, which was there at that time, 5,000 years back. There were no images of Krishna at that time. Right? So that was the human manifestation. So one who recognized the human manifestation as divine, then that is a human form of God. Like Radhaji recognized Sri Krishna as human manifestation, Gopikas, Arjuna, etc. They're all in human form like we are, but they recognize the divinity. Just like today, there are great saints. They're great not because they have 15 heads or 10 arms or something. They look just like us. But there is a greatness inside of them. There is a divinity that is manifesting to recognize that they are something extraordinary. This recognition in the human form of God, this is one type of recognition. And then after that human form is left, then there is the tradition that comes afterwards. Then the murtis are installed, images are installed. We find this everywhere. In every religion, in every tradition, something is there. Even mosques are, there's a mosque there. There's a Quran there. There's something there, even if an image is not there. Right? In the churches, there's the cross there. There's a church there. You can say God is everywhere, then why do you need all these things? Yeah, if you're at that level where there's nothing other than Bhagavan, then there's no question of, everything is temple, everything is, that higher consciousness. Yeah, that's true. Nobody can deny that. That is true. But for most people in this world, we have to have a doorway. So this is one logic, this one stream of logic. Now, let's look at the form and the concentration and the meditation on the form. When our mind is trying to evolve into devotion, it has to be devoted to God. Well, what is the most straightforward way to become devoted towards Bhagavan? Is to create a beautiful murti based on the charitra. Because Sri Krishna charitra is with the flute, with the cross-legged. There is a iconography. This is called iconography. That has been developed that way. It's based on some incident from his life. That is where the iconography comes from. And then from that, it's no longer just iconography. After the pratishta is done, there is a deep feeling inside, shraddha, that Paramatma is in front of me. And this is a level above. This is a very difficult level. To actually believe that, to actually feel that, is extremely difficult, because most people have some level of doubt or some level that how can that be? As soon as that comes, that has not developed yet. It is called in Gujarati, it is called Nastik Bhav. Nastik and Astik, two bhavs are there. Astika Bhav means the feeling that Paramatma exists, God exists and is present in front of me. This is called Astika Bhav. It is a bhavna. It is a deep conviction. It is a deep latching on to Paramatma in the dualistic sense, Dvaita Bhav. That is how the bhakti is done. Otherwise there cannot be bhakti. There are other paths. Somebody doesn't want to do that, it's not fitting in their mind. Many other paths are there, and see where they lead. That's a different discussion. So, to actually be in the dualistic relationship, there has to be conviction that's developed that the murti that is in front of me is Bhagwan. That's a difficult thing. It's not easy. To get to that point, scriptural study of the Gita, study of the Bhagavatam, listening to the different devotees, expositions, and then all of that eventually builds conviction. It is called Swarup Nishta. We talked about this before. That conviction develops that this is Paramatma. So the doubts are no longer present. It is called Nishay, and the Sangshay is gone. Sangshay, Nishay, Smriti, Nidra. Our intellect has 4 functions. The Buddhi Tattva has 4 functions. Sangshay, Nishay, Smriti, Nidra. Sangshay means doubts. Nishay means it is so. It is a conviction that it is so. That is called Nishay. So Smriti, Nidra. Smriti means remembering the higher understanding. Smriti. And Nidra means sleep. Falling away from that and becoming awakened into the worldly experience only. So if you're taking notes, these are 4 points of the 4 functions of the buddhi. That is Sangshay, Nishay, Smriti and Nidra. Right now, so we're talking about Nishay. Nishay means conviction. So now the murti is there. So let's say Sachin goes in front of any temple here, Hindu mandir. Generally there's a murti of Sri Krishna and Radhika ji. So when I'm standing in front of the murti, what do I see? Am I saying, this is just some anthropomorphic, iconographic, human-made, concocted, fake thing? If I look at it that way, there's no benefit in that. That's just a piece of stone and some artistic thing. That's all, right? It's like a person who has a $1 million check, $1 billion check. A 6-7-year-old kid doesn't know what it is. It's just a piece of paper. Throw it away. It's like that. Is it a piece of paper? Yes. But is it just a piece of paper? No. You have to know what to do with that, how to use it, what is involved in that, what's written on that. It's actually a valid check which has $1 billion. You're taking it, throwing it away as a piece of paper. And this like that. So wo kya hai? That murti of Sri Krishna and Radhika ji, who are they? This is called mahima. It's called recognition. In Gujarati we use the word olkhan. Bhagwan ne olakwa. Which you recognize. A 6-year-old kid doesn't know what $1 billion check is in his name. His name, that child has in his name $100 billion check. Cannot realize what that is. He has to grow up year by year by year. Eventually, realization will go, oh my God, this is what it is. This is our situation. We have the murti of Sri Krishna and Radhika ji. We have the Bhagavad Gita. We have the Bhagavatam. We have so many scriptures, so much materials. Endless number of commentators are on YouTube, and so many temples, and so much has been developed. How wonderful! But what are we doing with it? Can we recognize it properly? That is called spiritual maturity. So now Sachin goes in front of the temple, and now has studied the Gita, has gone through it, and slowly has. Then that Shraddha develops that no, Krishna is an incarnation of Bhagavan. That Shraddha develops internally from your own realization, not blind faith. See, there's a difference between blind faith and one's own development of Shraddha. There's a big difference between the two. A child can be brought up in a tradition, in a family, conditioned psychologically to believe in a particular way, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Hindu, as a Vaishnava, as an atheist, as this, as that. That's just conditioning. That's not independent realization or one's own realization. So the development of one's own Shraddha is the real thing. Simply following the family, following some tradition, following some rituals, that is not real. That is something fake and concocted. It is absolutely fake. Fake in what sense? It is secondary conditioning, J. Krishnamurti's teachings. That's not the reality. And if one is functioning just only based on the conditioning, that has no meaning at all. That's not even Shraddha, that's not Bhakti. That is simply just following some pattern without any realization. That is your own realization. No. That is not the reality at all. There's a lot of people, millions of people are just following patterns. How can that be realization? It is not, in fact. And what that leads to is groupism, division, and all those things we usually talk about. That's not it. One's own Shraddha has to develop. Yeah, the tradition, the conditioning, the pattern, that has a purpose also. That has a purpose so we can look beyond that. That's why conditioning is there. So for example, if Sachin is brought up in a family that worships Sri Krishna, I can be conditioned in that, doing rituals and arati and puja. But eventually I have to grow up and see what it is for myself, not just simply follow that pattern. Simply following the pattern blindly, that is blind faith. For following a pattern blindly doesn't mean you will not be able to follow it too long. Eventually what happens, that pattern goes away and then one dives and gets lost in the material world. That's it. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohammed. Then those patterns are, we see many times kids say, oh, when I was a child, I used to go to the temple, I used to do this because my parents took me there. But then when I grew up, went to college, left all that. It's all meaningless. How many people maximum number of people are doing that? Because they have no realization of their own. They have not taken a genuine path to search what is the truth. The word Shraddha doesn't mean blind faith. The word Shraddha, or that state of Shraddha, is developed through study, through contemplation, through reflection, through conviction. Then that form that is in front, the Murti that is in front, that Krishna that is in front of us, or the Gita that is in front in our hand, that holds a lot of meaning eventually when we grow up spiritually. But that's a path a person has to take on their own. It's not simply just adopting some culture, some tradition, some parampara and just following it blindly. There is such a thing as blind faith. It doesn't last very long. Blind faith doesn't lead to realization, ever. Faith cannot be blind. Faith has to be awakened from inside. And that's the big difference. So when we are having the vision or the Murti of Sri Krishna, it is the significance, the importance, and the nishay, the conviction inside of us. It is to that extent that there is the manifestation and the vision of Bhagavan as that form. It is only to that extent. Otherwise, there won't be anything at all. It's like the 6-year-old, 5-year-old kid has $100 billion check. He sees it as simply a piece of paper. Cannot read it, cannot understand nothing. Has no knowledge of it, doesn't even know that it's mine, what the $1 billion is, has no vision. What happens? What happens? He cannot gain any benefit from that. He's not ready to understand that development is not there. So this is the point. Before even bhakti begins, before there's Shraddha, before there's all these big things that we talk about every day, before any of that thing ever happens, there has to be unflinching Shraddha. Sanshay, meaning the doubts disappear. That requires many times years of study. Scriptural study. People don't take time. People say somehow they think that they can purchase God by giving some donations and doing some superficial things. Or maybe it's because of community, because they want to look good. I don't want to take anybody's fault. That's not it. It's not that. It's not about just superficial. It's dive into it. Take the 700 verses of the Gita and spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a day studying it. Who's doing that? That is how Shraddha develops. Shraddha is not something you can buy at a marketplace. No, it doesn't develop like that. It is very rare, and Bhakti is extremely rare. But that development takes its own time. Every day, like all of you who are coming, every day you're spending so much time, every single day, to listen to these pravachans and listen to these exposition, do all the sadhana. You have seen how the gradual development happens. But to really go into that unbroken Shraddha, that is where you take the Bhagavad Gita, and really dive into it with that conviction that this is absolutely correct. Not because Sachin is saying so or any gurus are saying so. You will know that yourself, that this is true. Why? Because of the anubhav from within. The anubhav from within that comes, the conviction comes. Conviction comes first. That devotion can begin. There's a conviction. It is called Swarup Nishta. That Bhagwan Krishna manifested at one point is present today in the form of the Archa Swarup, is like this. This is a conviction. It is on the basis of Nishta, meaning conviction, that Shraddha develops. We talked about this before. Nishay plus Nishta equals Shraddha. Now, from that Shraddha, now the Bhakti begins to open. Now that Vigraha, Archa Avatar, Radha and Krishna, they are not seen simply as metaphorical images or anything like that. They are seen as Bhagwan. Bhagwan ka darshan. You see, now the whole development is seen. It's like that 5-year-old who becomes a 25-year-old and says, oh my God, now I see. Some point happens where you say, my goodness, what is $1 billion? I did not know that at that time. We did not realize who we are seeing. It is like that. So that takes maturity. And that maturity happens through scriptural study, mantra sadhana, listening to the expositions by the great sages, looking at the concepts and teachings as we have been doing. This is how the maturity begins to happen. And there's a lot of base behind that. This material world, where did it come from? Is there a cause of the material world? We've gone through all of those basic ideas in the past several years, right? But that is how Shraddha develops. From Shraddha, then the individual moves into the dimension of a bhakta, the role of a bhakta, the life of a bhakta. The life of a bhakta is not just an intellectual, scholarly life or something. No. The life of a bhakta is one who has devotion, meaning the emotion, the intellect, our feelings, bhavana, is connected with love and affection, latching on to God. That is called devotion versus simply philosophical inquiry. Yeah, it's possible to study the Gita in a philosophical sense, in a scholarly way. There's many professors in religious studies departments throughout the world who study the Gita, who know it very well. They have written hundreds of papers and commentaries and books and analyses and all that. Does that mean there's devotion? There could be, but doesn't have to be. Somebody could be a great scholar and has absolutely no devotion. Somebody could be a great bhakta, devotee, has no scholarship at all. And there could also be the third category, that who is a great scholar and has great devotion. You see, so these are three possibilities. Devotion is latching on to Bhagwan in a way where there is connection with God, that I am yours. I am latching on to you. And one of the most straightforward ways that actually develops within is by recognizing several factors. One is the mortality of life. This body is going to eventually become old. If it becomes old, nobody knows how long anybody lives, and then it goes away. This is a fact of life. So we need psychologically to latch on. It is called the anchor. There's a beautiful verse in Hindi. चित्त की वृत्ति एक है, भावे त्या लगाओ, भावे तो हरि की भक्ति करो, भावे तो विषय कमाओ. Human being cannot remain unsupported. There needs to be support. So to take the shelter and support of Bhagwan is very good. There's nothing to be lost in that. There's no issue in doing that. So when we do this through conviction, as Shraddha develops, Nishta, Shraddha, assuming that has developed, then then bhakti, 9 forms of devotion really begin. They cannot even really begin until Shraddha is absolutely unflinching. It is called unflinching, uncontaminated, undivided, non-deflected Shraddha. This is Shraddha. And that is what Bhagavan Krishna says beautifully. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Jnanam of the Swarup of Paramatma, of the Atma. Everything begins from there. Shatanand Muni, who has talked about this Prema Bhakti, Prem-Lakshana Bhakti in Satsangi Jivan, he has stated beautifully, Shraddha Sarvesham Mata. That is the root, this is the mother of all development towards God. Without Shraddha, there is no possibility of realizing the Param Tattva. Even Shankaracharya ji, when he talks about devotion, he uses the word bhakti in terms of bhakti towards that realization of the truth. Yes, that is also beautiful. That is also covered in this. So Shraddha is the base. And we have to ask ourselves, what Shraddha is there? How much Shraddha is there really? And to develop that, to understand that, to grow in that, Shastra, Mantra, Stotra, 3 things. Shastra, so there's scriptures, mantras and stotras for each Ishta Devata. Bhagwan Krishna and Radhika ji, who we are focusing on, what is the main scripture? That is Bhagavad Gita. What is the main Leela Charitra scripture? The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And then there's many other scriptures after that. What are the stotras? Vishnu Sahasranam, Krishna Sahasranam, Radha Sahasranam. These are the stotras. So mantra, shastra and stotra, they come together and they develop as we go in that process. Then the Shraddha develops. As Shraddha develops, more Upasana develops. Now Bhakti and Upasana are the same.
What is the third one?
Right? So the third is Stotra. Stotra are Vishnu Sahasranam, Shiv Sahasranam, Lalita Sahasranam. These are called Stotras. Right? So
what is the difference between mantra and stotra?
Oh, there's a difference and there's also a similarity between mantra and stotra. Mantra is a certain number of sound syllables that are spoken again and again and again. So for example, when we say Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama, this is a mantra. Mantra meaning that it is repeated, and it is repeated in a way where the internal sound and its meaning begins to open through the mananam process. That is called a mantra. Right? So now the stotra is a series of names. They are adorations. They are glorifications of Paramatma. So Vishnu Sahasranam is a stotra, but there's a link also. In what sense? Because Vishnu Sahasranam is the adoration of Bhagavan Vishnu. Fine. Vishnu, Vishnur, Vashatkaro, all those different, there's 1,000 names like this. Okay. But now each name can be a mantra also. So you can take the very first name, Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, Om Vishnave Namaha, Om Vishnave Swaha, Om Vishnave Swaha. So now the same names, 1,000 names, each one can be a mantra. So that is how the words in the stotra can become mantra. And see, there is also shlok. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita's verses are called shlokas. The statements in the Vedas are called mantras. What is the difference between the two? Well, because the mantra in the Vedas, you cannot really translate them. They are all sound vibrations that are connecting straight away with the higher consciousness. The shlokas in the Gita are also like that, but they are not written in the style like a Veda mantra, as such. So they are written in a little different Sanskrit style, but when we meditate on even one shloka, it becomes a mantra. So you can turn one shlok into a mantra. So for example, Om Shraddhavan Labate Gnanam Tatparah Sanyatendriyah Gnanam Labdva Param Shantim Achirenadi Gacchati. I can take this shloka and it can become a mantra if it is repeated 10,000 times. With its meaning. So now you can use AIs and all those things, find out every single meaning of it, absorb it inside. That becomes a mantra. So that is actually the goal. The goal is to take the stotras and the shlokas and bring them into the level of mantra. I'm glad somebody you were asking. Please do ask these kinds of questions. That will help to explain this further. The goal is to bring it into the level of mantra, where it vibrates from inside. So for example, this thing that Sachin is describing here, Shraddhavan Labate Gnanam Tatparah Sanyatendriya, what is Shraddha, Nishta, this and that. It's an exposition, right? But there are verses that really expound this, so that I can pull 5 or 6 verses, 10, 15, 20 verses like this and really meditate on them, go in them. They get absorbed inside. That absorption inside is the pratishta of the mantra inside. So when we do the Laghu Nyasam, that is exactly what is done in the Laghu Nyas. In Shivratri this is done. It is done in many different pujas, So the Nyasa means what? You are installing the powers of God within you, within the body, mind, senses, everywhere. So Aham Amrute, Amrutam Brahmani, like this, these verses are there. These are the Ved mantras. So this is called Nyasa. But if you don't...
invoke the God inside.
Yes, that is the whole purpose actually. The whole purpose of the murti outside, the scriptures, the stotras, the external paraphernalia, its entire purpose, temples, mandir, everything, has only one purpose: to bring the installation inside. Yes, this is called murti pratishta inside. So how do we do it? You take verses of the Gita. So for example, like the Sthita Prajna verse, right? Sthita Prajna Shaka Bhasha Samadhi Sasya Keshava Sthita Dihi Kim Prabhashita Kim Asita Vrajeta Kim Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmanevatmana Tushtaha Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. I can take that first answer given by Bhagwan Krishna to Arjuna's question about what is the Sthita Prajna, that Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmanevatmana Tushtaha Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. I have to meditate. I listen to this verse, uska manan karna, again and again, chintan, manan, chintan, nididhyasana, as the Vedanta teaches us. And from that verse starts living inside. And so how do we do this? We take that one verse, just take that one verse. Have the Murti of Bhagwan Krishna and Radhika ji touch their feet, because we need external worship. We need a way to enter into that domain, that spiritual domain. So we need to do the worship, and we ask for blessings from Guru Parampara and from Radhika ji and Sri Krishna for this verse to be realized. See, there's a difference between Sachin simply speaking the verse. I can give an exposition of it, so can you. Many people can, so what? Is it realized? हमारे अनुभव में आ गया है. So my intention can be, I believe, first of all, I believe that this is correct. Not only that, I want this. ये जो स्थिति है, स्थित प्रज्ञ की जो स्थिति का जो वर्णन किया है भगवान कृष्ण परमात्मा ने, I want that thing. Wow. People say, I want to be rich, I want to be this, I want to be that in this worldly life, right? Has anybody ever said, have we all also said that I want this verse, that what is written in this verse, that has to be me. That is me. My God, that is, if we have, this is called Nishta, Swarup Nishta. Now we take that verse and begin the installation process inside the mind. You don't leave it outside. The Bhagavad Gita has to be installed inside. In Vachanamrut mein, Swaminarayan Bhagwan kehte on this point, Satsang માં જે વાર્તા થાય છે એ ધારવી અને વિચારવી, નિત્ય ધારવી વિચાર. Hold and contemplate. Hold inside and contemplate. We don't do this. But if we start doing it, this is today's sadhana, an everyday sadhana. Hold it inside. Take one idea, one verse, one concept, like Sthita Prajna. the equilibrium concept that you go into the verse. We'll talk about it some other time. We've talked about it before. I'm just explaining the process right now. We hold it inside, contemplate again and again and again and again, to the point where our mind is brimming with that shloka. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmannevatmana tushtaha stita pragnasta dochate. Bhagwan Krishna said this. Who said this? That is Shraddha. He said it correctly. It makes sense to me. I want that. I'm going to go deeper, 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 deeper into it. And then pray to Radhika ji, do bhajan kirtan. By doing that, that truth, the satyam, the sthiti, the state that is described in that verse becomes me. And that is the meaning of Brahma Bhutah Prasannatma. You are moving into the dimension of Brahman by installation inside. If we don't do the installation inside, step by step by step, everything remains at the psychological, superficial level, and eventually the mind will throw it out. Definitely. That's what most people, even who are in spiritual path, they incorporate a little bit, do some rituals, mantras, this, that, festivals, whatever. And then eventually as time goes on, all of that thing is literally taken and thrown out. Janmashtami programs, Diwali programs, this program, that ritual, that, it just goes on. And then eventually you take all that thing and throw it into a trash bag. And go back into Vishaya Bhog, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Matsar, Asha. This is why nobody realizes God. Bhagwan to realize God, it's very simple and straightforward. Bring it inside. Antar mein lana. Antar mein dharan karna. Shabdon ka dharan karna. What is Guru after all? What is Guru? It's just you're running out behind saints physically. Some people like to do that. Okay, that's fine. Do it. It's a good beginning. What is the life of such a saint? What is the life, of their saintliness? Can't be holding it inside. It's to hold the words of Sri Krishna, the devotees, their teachings, to realize it from inside. It's not simply, I can glorify Krishna, but if I'm glorifying glorification, it is called. We can glorify Bhagavan, and it has to be done. Why not? But at the same time, the real glory comes when in our heart we install the words that have come out of his mouth. Then the truth is going to reveal, and that glorification, that bhakti really takes hold. You see, so it's an internal bhakti. Eventually all of the bhakti turns internal. All the external bhakti that is done, it's in the beginning stages, it eventually folds inside. Wherever the great bhakti is always going on. Right? So these are the points for today. We're already at 8:46. Just one or two things and then we'll stop. This is a very personal journey. It is based on Shraddha. It is based on scriptural study, mantra, shastra, stotra. Even the Gita verses, in one sense, is a kind of, it can become mantra if we wanted. They're kind of a stotra in another sense, but it's a shastra. It is prastantrayi, right? So the teachings are there. The concepts are there. Even the sound of the Gita shlokas, it makes a lot of difference. The Sanskrit language is not just a language. It is a sound-based technology. So when we speak the Gita verses in the original Sanskrit, it has a lot of benefit for us. Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparaha sanyatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim achirena adhigacchati. Right? So when we speak this, it's very melodious. It goes into our heart. And it's good to learn a little bit. It's not hard to learn. Little bit, just take one shlok at a time. Start learning the verses. We don't, in our Sanatan Dharma, what we so-called Hindu community, we don't have importance of this thing. You see, in other religious traditions, people have a lot of importance on studying their original scriptures. In Sachin's humble perspective and opinion, everybody part of Sanatan Dharma should be a student of the Gita, must have the Gita, should be studying it regularly. regular
Yes, I feel, and
abhyas.
it should be introduced during the childhood itself.
Right,
You know.
exactly. It has to be introduced.
Maybe,
It can be memorized, and then the development will happen. Otherwise, we're just getting deflected, right? So these are responsibilities we have. We spread the word. We do our part. There are many sampradayas, many gurus. Everything is beautiful, but this is how the development happens, and it is very beautiful. It makes life beautiful. So there's a lot of ways to talk about it, but our purpose here specifically in the morning satsang is to specifically talk about the highest levels of spirituality, because we need some platform to do that without divisiveness, without bhedbhav of any kind, so that the entire Sanatana Dharma can be presented in the most objective manner, with as many perspectives as possible, without any kind of me versus you idea, right? So with that, let's stop here for now. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Gunatito Aksharam Brahma Bhagavan Purushottamaha Jano Jananditam Satyam Uchate Bhava Bandhanat Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundaye Viche Swaha Om Durge Durge Rakshini Tata Swaha Om Shri Durga Arpanamastu Om Shri Radha Krishna Arpanamastu Om Hrim